Hello friends, welcome to our channel Knowledge Amplifier. So in our today's video, we are going to explore one very interesting way of monitoring our ETL data pipelines, whatever we can build using different cloud compute services. For example, you are running a Python code in an event-driven manner using AWS Lambda, or your Python batch job is getting triggered from AWS Event Bridge or Airflow in AWS batch, which is basically running in a serverless Fargate cluster, or maybe you are running PySpark ETL pipeline in AWS Glue. Whatever compute service you use, obviously we need to set up a monitoring pipeline so that if any of the job fails, the developer team will be getting a notification about that so that they can inspect that why the job failed, and that way SLA breach can be avoided, right? So this is kind of an obvious step for most of the industry standard production grade data pipelines. And if you are working with AWS Cloud, then there are several ways to set up this monitoring system. Maybe what you can do, you can capture this Glue job failure event or AWS batch job failure event using AWS Event Bridge, because whenever the state of these jobs get changed, then they emit the event in Event Bridge. From Event Bridge, you can maybe forward that event to AWS SNS, right? And using SNS, you can trigger a Lambda function which can send the email using AWS Simple Email Service, or directly send the message or alert in Slack or Microsoft Teams via webhook. So those kind of ways are also there, which I already discussed in my previous video. So in our today's session, we are going to explore one such way of monitoring our data pipelines using CloudWatch. Okay, so what is that particular approach is depicted using this particular diagram. So we are having AWS Lambda, AWS Glue, AWS Batch, etc. different compute resources. So there within a try catch block, we'll be writing our code, where in the try section, we'll be having actual business logic, and in the except block, we will handle this alert functionality part. Okay, so whenever there is some exception arised in our try block, the code will go to the except block, and what we will do that time, we will emit an event to a particular CloudWatch metric. Okay, we will make an entry in a CloudWatch metric, like that way you can understand. Okay, and obviously on top of that CloudWatch metric, we'll be setting up a CloudWatch Alarm, which will become in on state whenever there is one entry made in the particular metric, and that CloudWatch Alarm on event we can forward to AWS SNS, and from SNS using email we can forward that notification to the developer team, right? So this is the way, and how to set up an CloudWatch Alarm and send that event via AWS SNS. This part already I have covered in my previous video. In today's video specifically, we are going to observe how to set up this particular part, that is how to set up a try catch block and make an entry in CloudWatch metric, right? Because most of the time earlier, whatever CloudWatch metric we have explored, that is by default generated by AWS, but this time we are going to build a custom CloudWatch metric which is basically monitoring or having a track of our data pipeline success or failure events, right? So how to insert the data in CloudWatch using Python and Boto3, on that part we are going to explore in today's session. Okay, so obviously to interact with CloudWatch, we need Boto3 because we are working with Python. So I will just simply do pip3 install Boto3 to install that module. And now before going ahead with the CloudWatch actual code, we need to understand three very important concepts whenever you are working with CloudWatch metric. One is namespace, one is matrices, one is dimension. So let's start with the first one. What is namespace? Okay, so for that I will go to AWS Management Console and I'll be clicking on CloudWatch. Okay, right? So here if you see, we are having alarms, logs and matrices. So our interest point is matrices. So you can click on all matrices. And here you will be able to see custom namespace and AWS namespace, right? Earlier mostly we have interacted with AWS namespaces. So here if you see the names, from here itself you will able to get it what actually namespace meaning. So if you see related to DynamoDB, one namespace is there. If you go inside that, all the DynamoDB related matrices are stored. If you click on any matrix, here you will see like provision write capacity unit is the metric name, then consume read capacity unit is another metric name. So we are getting this idea that namespace is kind of an way how we are arranging or grouping our matrices. Like all the matrices related to DynamoDB are available within the DynamoDB namespace, which are managed by AWS. Similarly, for all the matrices which are related to EC2 are available within the namespace with name EC2. If you go inside that, per instance matrices, Here you will able to see for each instance what is the CPU utilization, network in, network out, all those kind of metric information. So in short, we can say that namespace is nothing but a container for CloudWatch matrices. Matrices in different namespace are isolated from each other so that matrices from different applications are not mistakenly aggregated into the same statistics. So what we are trying to say is basically namespace is helping in grouping different matrices application level. DynamoDB matrices are different, EC2 matrices are different. So we are grouping all the DynamoDB related matrices in DynamoDB namespace, all the EC2 related matrices in EC2 namespace, so that they will not be getting mixed up. That's the only reason of having namespace, right? So in our code, if you see, parallelly we will try to develop our code also. So first we are importing Boto 3 and let's go to the main code. So here if you see main code in the try block also, that if the job gets success, we want to make an entry in CloudWatch metrics, and if the job fails, that time also we want to make an entry in CloudWatch metrics. Just the metrics names will be different. One will be success metrics, one will be failure metrics. That's all, right? So here if you see try block, first we are printing success and write to CloudWatch. Focus on this particular function. First parameter what we need to provide is namespace name. As I told you, that namespace will basically store all the metrics information. It will act as a container. So here we are trying to store success or failure count for our data pipelines, right? So maybe namespace we can create team level. So suppose we are having a team called Process Excellence Team, PET in short. So for that PET team, we want to create a namespace. So that's why here the namespace name we are providing PET data pipelines. Okay, right? Now if the job gets success, we want to simply make an entry in DynamoDB. So the next parameter is metric name. So what is this metric name? Matrices are the fundamental concepts in CloudWatch. It is obvious, right? In CloudWatch, generally we monitor that with time how the data points are getting varied. For example, if you see here within DynamoDB namespace, if I go and table matrices, if I go inside that, suppose for this particular table, you want to monitor proficient write capacity units. This particular metric you want to monitor, that is with respect to time, how it is getting changed. So I will just click on that. And here it will be basically showing me these data points, right? So this is nothing but metric. This is the fundamental part of CloudWatch for which we are using it. So that's what is written here. That matrices are fundamental concept in CloudWatch. A metric represents a time-ordered set of data points. It is obvious, right? That if you see the x-axis, it is time. And y-axis may have count or some other values, right? So it is a time-ordered set of data points that are published to CloudWatch. Think of metric as a variable to monitor. So we are monitoring the variable. And what is the variable? That is nothing but proficient write capacity unit that count how it is getting changed with time that we are monitoring. So that's why we are writing here that think of metric as a variable to monitor and the data points as representing the value of that variable over time. So here if you see this one is a data point. And what is this? This is basically nothing but 1. It is nothing but a value which is indicating the value for the variable proficient write capacity units. What basically metric name we are having, right? So I hope what is matrices is pretty much clear to you. This is the fundamental concept in CloudWatch. Now let's see the code how we are implementing matrices. So if you see namespace we have already written. Now the metric name. So in the try block where our actual business logic is written, if the job gets success, we want to make an entry in the success metric. So that's why metric name we are providing data pipeline success matrices. Okay, right? So this is the metric name. And if you see the except block, the namespace is same. I will just keep namespace same because for the same team, all the matrices we want to keep in same namespace. So paid data pipelines only we are keeping in the except block also. But this time metric name is getting changed. Earlier, this one is for success metric. But if you see this one, it is for failure metric, right? So that's the metric name getting changed. So within a particular namespace, if you see, we are having multiple metric. One is provision write capacity units. One is consumed read capacity unit, like that. So it is perfectly fine to have different matrices within same namespace. The next parameter is dimension. So what is that? Let us try to understand. So dimensions are the name value pair that separate data points for different things within same metric. So what is that? Let us try to understand. So if you see, this is basically metrics information related to DynamoDB table. And let us pick up one particular metric only, provisioned write capacity unit. So this is the metric name. Now this metric we may have for the table 1 that is having name review storer. We might have for some other table also. Like if you see review storer YT. So this is another table, but the metric name is same. Provision write capacity unit. So maybe I can enable this one also. So both of these tables data points, that is provision write capacity unit, basically will be displayed here. So if you see here in the legend, we are getting two information. One is review storer for this table, one is for review storer YT for this table. So metric name is same, but for two different entities, or in this case for two different tables, we are showing the visualization. And this is nothing but called the dimension. So dimension is basically the table. For another example, if you consider EC2, so maybe CPU utilization you are monitoring. Now metric name is CPU utilization only, but there can be multiple EC2. So that time the dimension can be instance ID. That is, based on instance ID, we can at least segregate the data points for the same metrics, but for two different EC2 instances or two different entities. So similarly, that's what the dimension is. The dimensions are the name value pair that separate data points for different things within same metric. So here metric name is same, provision write capacity unit, but dimension is basically the table name which is differentiating the data points for the same metric, right? So review storer is one value for our dimension table, and review storer YT is another value for our dimension table. So dimension will be always a key value pair. Like in this case, table name is the key and the value is review storer YT, or n number of DynamoDB table names. In case of EC2, the instance ID, this is nothing but the key, okay? And in the value part, we'll be having the EC2 instance ID actual one. So I can show you that also. So maybe I can go to all matrices, and then here I can just squeeze this part little bit, and if I go to EC2 per instance matrices, here if you see CPU utilization is there, this is the metric name, but for the same metrics for two different EC2 instances, if you want to isolate the data, then you have to have instance ID. This is nothing but dimension. This is the key. Instance ID is the key, and in the value part we are having instance ID of different EC2 instances, right? So that way we can basically differentiate data points for different things within same metric. Okay. So in our data pipeline monitoring system, you tell me what should be the dimension. So obviously one answer what I can think of is the pipeline name, right? So pet team is our namespace. Within namespace, we'll be having metric, success metric and failure metric. Success metric will denote the success events for our different data pipelines, and failure metric will be denoting the failure events of our pet team's data pipeline. Okay. Now the success events, that is basically one particular metric. Now within our team, we may have n number of data pipelines, but metric name is only one, that is success metric. So how we can differentiate? We can differentiate based on the job name what we are running. So that's why if you see here in this code block, the dimension in case of success one, I am writing the job name. In case of failure one also, I am writing the job name within except block. So dimension, job name is the key, and the value part is basically you can put the job name for which the success event can be generated, that is ops ingestion glue job, or if it is failed, then some value you can put here. The same job we want to monitor within this same code. So that's why the dimension we are keeping the same, right? So I hope the namespace, metric name, dimension is clear to you. Now obviously next thing is value and unit, and that is obviously a part of CloudWatch, that what we want to make an entry. So till now we have understood how the data will be aligned within our CloudWatch, but what we want to show, that value part also we have to enter, right? So that's why if you see write to CloudWatch, the value we are entering, if the code is in try block, then the value is 1, unit is in count, because whenever the job gets success, I want to put a count value 1. So like that way there can be different units. You can make an entry in CloudWatch. I'm not going to that detail. So just if the job gets success, I want to make an entry of value 1 with unit count. And if the job fails, I want to make an entry of value 1 as a count unit in the failure matrix. That's all. Okay, right? And this is our main function, write to CloudWatch, where we are creating the Photo3 client for CloudWatch and we are making an entry. As simple as that. So first let's run the code, and because here I have commented this particular line 0 divided by 0, so the code will obviously success, it will just print success. And as of now, if you see in our CloudWatch namespace, in the custom namespace, we don't have anything with the namespace name paid data pipelines. Okay, right? So I will just run this code. So here till now paid data pipeline namespace is not there. So here if you see our code ran successfully, it has printed success because of this particular print statement, and then it has called this function, and if the function get executed successfully, it is printing successfully log metric to CloudWatch. So that also it is showing here, right? So let's go to our metric and let's refresh. So here it is showing graph matrices. Currently I don't want to show any previous graphs, so I will directly go to browser section, and here if you see paid data pipeline, this particular namespace is created. If you go inside that, here you will able to see the metric name data pipeline success metric. Because our job is successful, that's why the metric name where it has published the data is data pipeline success metric, and the namespace is paid data pipeline, right? Dimension, as I told you, that the metric is common data pipeline success metric, but to differentiate within same metric, we need to provide the dimension, and the dimension is job name. Earlier for DynamoDB, it was table name. Earlier for EC2, it was having instance ID, but this time the name is job name, and the value part is basically different data pipelines name we can provide, like ops, ingestion, glue job. Suppose this is a glue job, right? So that time, this is the event it is bringing. And now you can click on this to show the visualization in this particular graph. And till now the data has not came, because currently if you see the timing is 7:56 p.m. and the data is available up to 7:45. So just we need to wait a little bit to view the data in CloudWatch. So let's wait for a few seconds. Meanwhile, parallelly I will run the failed event also. So what I will do, I will disable this print success one, and print 0 by 0 I will try to do. So this time the code will fail, it will go to the except block, it will print failed, and it will make an entry in the same namespace, but this time the metric name will be data pipeline failure matrices. Okay, and the dimension is same, that is job name, and same job we are monitoring, right? So that's why the value also I have kept same. So if I run this one, so it is failed and successfully logged the metrics in CloudWatch. So let's go here and maybe let's refresh once. So I'll go back once. So I will again click on this. Now if you see, data pipeline failure metrics also came. So for the same job, two different matrices are available, right? Obviously one for success, one for failure. So maybe I want to inspect both. So here if I make this bigger, here in the legend, here you will be able to see success metric and failure metric both for this particular job name, ops, ingestion, glue job. Okay, so let's wait for a few minutes until it get refreshed. So when I refreshed now, here you can see both the data points came, because maybe the range is quite big, so it is coming as overlap. Let me try to squeeze that from 3 hours to maybe last 15 minutes. And if I refresh now, here you will be able to see it better way, that at 19:55, that is at 7:55 p.m. around that I ran the jobs. So data pipeline success metric and data pipeline failure metric both became one. So this is how you can basically push your metrics data to custom namespace, to custom CloudWatch metrics. Okay, right? Now this particular code block, obviously you can patch in with your existing Lambda function, existing glue job, existing PySpark job that may be running in AWS Glue or EMR. If you want to monitor both success and failed, you can put this particular code block in try section, and in the except block you can put this particular code block. Just you have to provide the metric name properly, namespace name properly, and each time for different jobs or Python code, whatever you want to monitor, for that this value part you have to change. So ops, ingestion, glue job, because this one I want to monitor. Suppose I am having a different job, so maybe that job name I will be writing here 1, 2, 3, and here also in the value part I will be writing 1, 2, 3. So that way what will happen in this particular matrix, when you will come here, that particular job name will be displayed, so that you can easily check on that and easily view that particular metric data, right? And obviously here it is not ended. We have to create an alarm also on top of this CloudWatch metric. From that alarm, we have to set up SNS, so that as soon as some entry is made, especially in case of failed matrices, the event will go via email to developer team, so that they can perform RCA, that why the pipeline failed. And this is basically one of the popular way to monitor your data pipelines, whether you are running from AWS Event Bridge or Airflow, any orchestrator tool you are using, that can be Autosys also. You can use this particular concept anywhere, because this you are simply writing within your Python code block. So there will be no huge overhead to add this in your existing data pipeline also. So this is what I wanted to share with you in today's video. If you find this video helpful, then please like, share and comment. Subscribe our channel if you have not subscribed till now. And don't forget to press the bell icon to get the notification of our latest videos. Thank you for watching.